many agencies in the world that do stuff normal people like you and me aren't supposed to know. Most of these agencies consist of a certain amount of letters, acronyms and initialisms such as CIA, FBI, NRA, KGB, MI6, BBC and others. Never cool names like the Phoenix Foundation, Knight Industries, the Agency, the Bavarian Illuminati or the Gnomes of Zurich. Hell, not even an uncle or a mask. Regardless of their name, these agencies deal with all kinds of cool stuff. Stuff that we can enjoy in movie and series form. Stuff that might seem fantastical but that is closer to the truth than we might expect. The Anarchists, also known as Anarchists U2, is a South Korean Park Chan-wook movie from 2000 about a bunch of Korean anarchists who are trying to bring down the Chinese government in the 1920s. Needless to say that these fellas run into enough trouble with the law, government, their anarchists friends and others. It's a shame that there's not really much to say about this movie. After seeing so many Korean films about a group of friends doing something illegal, it almost feels like the same movie. Same beats, same action, sometimes even the same actors. This movie looks good, but to me it was just boring as hell. It was very hard for me to hold my attention, especially since all of it felt so familiar. The John Woo action is amusing at times, but once again nothing we haven't seen before in other movies. I often thought I already saw the film, but I didn't. If you haven't seen movies like this, then I'm sure this will mean something to you. But I have seen too many and this one didn't impress me at all. Too bad. The name is cool though. Drop that. Compliance is yet another movie based on real events, and this one will shatter your mind. Imagine, if you will, a fast food restaurant. Managers tell clerks what to do. Clerks do what cooks need to do. It's a low-paid job, but someone has to do it. And it works. A well-oiled machine with step-by-step actions to get to results. Easy enough, you can do it blindfolded, without thinking about it. Imagine then, that one of these restaurants gets a call by someone who claims to be a police officer. Their request to detain one of your employees who is being accused of participating in a crime. To detain and question them until the real cops, currently occupied elsewhere, to do their jobs. Would you comply, or would you question it? This movie shows very nicely how easy it is sometimes to get people to do things, unspeakable things, things you would think should not happen. It has been proven many times in history that people will often follow whatever a source of power tells them to, often with disastrous consequences. It is therefore necessary to question everything, and oh boy, many people should have questioned what happens here. Many people should have stood up and said no, whether it's against someone in charge or rise up together. This movie shows on a very little scale what governments across the world have done en masse. And whatever you might think of the people involved at the end of the film, and trust me, I have thoughts of my own. This stuff happens, in some way or the other, all the time. And it's sad, really. Sad for the victims. Sad for those who went along. What's even sadder about this case, which gets even more crazy when you know the full extent, is that whatever happened hasn't been punished like it should have been. Go watch this, but prepare yourself. It's a tough watch. Smash that. Day Shift is a 2022 action movie with Jamie Foxx playing a vampire hunter who, due to a bad rep and being in debt, is forced to work for the day shift. We all know vampires don't come out during the day, so this is effectively a demotion. What's even worse is that he's been saddled with a sidekick, played by Dave Franco, who is pretty useless on the street. And when I say useless, I mean very, very useless, a real pansy. And so these two unlikely badasses go forth into the day to fight vampires and bring their fangs home. Too bad they push the buttons of some very high-ranking and powerful vampires who just can't let this vampire hunter scum go. Day Shift visually feels a lot like the Will Smith vehicle Bright, which is pretty much Shadowrun the movie. It also resembles some other modern vampire films that still hold dear to the legend of the vampire, including Mirrors, Daylight and others. This movie is very much style over substance, and it did it well until, and this might be purely personal, Dave Franco's character got on my nerves. I can understand goofy sidekicks, but to me they rarely work. This guy literally pisses his pants several times and is overall useless. The slapstick comedy doesn't quite work for me with the violent action that happens elsewhere. There's some good jokes in there though, and you'll cheer loudly when you see no other than Snoop Dogg pop up as a veteran vampire hunter. And besides his typical weed shtick and easy as fuck relaxed cool, he also brings some heavy machinery at just the right times. Oh, and it also features Megan Oh girl, you're so much more than merely apostrophe good as Fox's ex-wife, who is being an ass with alimony and visitation. You know, like many ex-wives do. But Megan Good, oh man, she fine. Always has been, always will. Too bad she isn't in it more. Maybe in the sequel where she helps her man fight some more vamps. Check that. Deja Vu is a weird film by Tony Scott from 2006 with none other than Denzel Washington and Val Kilmer. A pleasure boat is holding a party with lots of Marines and their families somewhere in New Orleans. All seems pretty nifty until the whole thing blows up. Terrorist attack in the bay. In come the special agencies to investigate the scene, and so does Special Agent Douglas Garlin, played by Denzel, from the ATF, which is the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives branch of the American government, who is working with the FBI in finding the culprit. Agent Carlin is a smart cookie, seeing things other people don't see. He's quite the boss. All looks fine until at one point in the film they do the weird thing of involving time travel. Yes, time travel. I guess the name Deja Vu should have rung a bell, but I was totally not thinking about time travel. Granted, the method of time travel is a bit different from other movies, but it's still something that isn't possible in reality. And that's what makes this film weird. It feels too realistic. Almost Seven-like in the beginning, and then they throw in this magical machine. And not only do they show this machine, they also start doing things with it. What's also creepy is the sudden interest Carlin has with a certain female that he just happens to see naked in the shower. Forced love interests were a thing in movies at one point. Couldn't see a movie without some kind of love interest. Most were fine. This didn't work at all, and neither does the time travel plot. I didn't even bother overthinking the mechanics of this type of travel and all the mistakes, but it felt way more off than any other time travel movie I have seen, and I have seen many. Drop that. Detachment is a 2011 movie about teachers in school and is supposedly based on real-life stories from actual teachers. Adrian Brody is one of those teachers. That is to say, he is a substitute teacher currently assigned to teach in a troubled school where the youth doesn't care and the faculty stopped trying. One of the first scenes where he introduces himself to class immediately sets a tone where you would expect it to become some kind of the principal or the substitute teacher, but nothing more could be further from the truth. What we do see is a very introspective and realistic story about the failure of the American school system, plagued with all kinds of unhelpful problems such as gangs, violence, guns, SATs, funding and more. It's baffling that an education system that performs too poorly is considered by certain politicians in Europe and mainly my country, which was among the best. That aside, however, Brody meets up with a teenager hooking herself on the street and takes her under his wing. There's more drama that enters because of this as fellow teachers and students deal with our main character, their own trauma and the school system in general. Detachment is a hard film because it lies too close to reality. We all went to school. We all experienced some of it, and our children are going to be put in too. It's filmed in stark grey tones, which also says something about the film and subject matter, I think. The grey mass, the grey mouse, the depressing bleakness of conformity. Suffice to say, Detachment is an excellent film, and for those who can't stand Brody, the voluptuous Christina Hendricks is in it, so there's at least a bright spot for you. Smash that. Goliath is a 2022 French movie about a part-time lawyer going after some big corporations after it comes to light that their so-called environmentally friendly pesticide causes cancer. Just to be clear, this isn't the same lawyer played by Billy Bob Thornton in the great series Goliath, but a French one in a French/Belgian movie. Tired, poor victims taking arms against multinational billion-dollar corporations. David vs. Goliath. The plight of these people is contrasted with the character of a lobbyist who works for these companies and spins their innocence in the media. What's so excellent about this movie is how these tried and tested narratives slowly begin to lead a life of their own. There's a scene in the movie where the lobbyists try out this speech which later gets picked up by politicians almost verbatim. I found this little detail to be quite interesting, as stuff like that rarely gets shown in movies like this. There's a lot more subtlety in this film, and it shows a lot about the plight we are all facing today. The population who are forced to follow directions of governments who are often played as puppets by corporations. Corruption, backhanded deals, greed, everything you would expect. The movie goes places and it's tense from beginning to start, showing us as many sides of the battle and the people involved as possible. It's almost as good as Goliath the series, and I wouldn't be surprised that it has at least some link with that show, since that show also deals with people going up against powerful institutions and corporations. Check this movie out if you're not afraid of French-spoken movies. And if you are, just check out the series with Billy Bob Thornton, ya linguist bigot. Smash that. Neighbors. Everybody needs good neighbors. With a little understanding you can find the perfect blend. Neighbors should be there for one another. That's when good neighbors become good friends. Lakeview Terrace is a 2008 movie based on real events about a young mixed couple who moves into a new house in a new neighborhood. When their next door neighbor, a cop played by Samuel L. Jackson, presents himself to the couple, it's clear that he isn't that fond of black and white mingling. Things eventually escalate and the couple find themselves in the ire of a racist cop with a lot of pull in the neighborhood and the force. Living next to people isn't an easy thing. Having good neighbors is important for the peace and quiet in your life. Nothing worse than obnoxious neighbors. And so imagine that you have a racist neighbor eager to make your life miserable. A neighbor with power and influence to boot. This movie nicely portrays the tension that a person would feel in this situation. Samuel L. Jackson, as always, is great in his role, but Patrick Wilson holds his own against him. And although the situation depicted in the movie isn't quite the same as what ultimately happened in real life, it must not have been a pleasant ordeal to go through. Lakeview Terrace is a straightforward, pleasant movie about an unpleasant situation. Let's hope that the neighbors you have or will have are of a better nature. Smash that. The Grey Man is a 2022 spy action movie with Ken Doll, Ryan Gosling and lefty loon Chris Evans about a criminal who gets recruited into the CIA for covert black ops. When their top asset, named One, seeing 009 is another franchise, goes off the grid, people are sent out to snatch him. But our dear Ryan, codename 6, can't just let his friend and mentor perish and finds himself fighting against the institution he was part of. The Grey Man is a standard modern spy movie, without gadgets but with a lot of kicking ass, vehicle chases and gun fu. There's also Ana de Armas who, albeit a gem to see, doesn't pop off the screen as much as she did in the last Bond movie with Daniel Craig. And maybe this comparison is the most striking analogy I can make at this point in time. This movie, like Anna in this role, is a pale uninspired copy of other espionage franchises, something which needs to pop off in a glorious revealing outfit of decadence and sexuality that becomes somewhat of a grey mouse. A grey man, a more apt name one could not have made. It's even worse when halfway across the movie you realize that you're bored and that no matter the action and set pieces blowing up will change that. The film is competently made, but it's just boring as fuck, and the charms of De Armas nor Gosling can save it. Chris Evans is a take-it-or-leave-it character who doesn't impress at all in my book. He's a lousy villain, and the final battle between the two agents had me rolling, especially because it once again looked so much like other movies who did it better. Drop that. The Old Man is a 2022 espionage series with none other than legendary Jeff Bridges playing an ex-CIA agent who has gone off the grid for a couple of decades. Suddenly, however, somehow they find him and his world gets turned upside down. There's some intrigue between agencies, secrets never told, and a brother, played by John Lithgow, plus his daughter who are playing both sides. The Old Man starts off promising, showing us an elderly Bridges kicking some ass in the first episode, sicking his 2 Rottweilers on others as if it's nothing. And it's bloody fucking cool. Unfortunately that pretty much disappears by episode 3, leaving us with the intrigue. And that intrigue, my dear viewers, isn't all that interesting. Love triangle upon love triangle, betrayal and loyalty. It's all a little bit too bland for me, plus he gets rid of the dogs at one point. I mean, those were the best things about the show. Though that could be because I was watching the Doberman movies at the same time as I was watching this show. The acting is solid, but the premise of the show reminded us of such classics as The Fugitive doesn't go to the places I would like to have seen it gone. Instead it turns into a fairly tame spy story where the conclusion is all but lackluster. A shame really. Oh, by the way, if you wish to see more of Liam Lubany, who plays the daughter, be sure to check out the much more interesting spy series Condor. Wozo indeed. Check that. 36 years ago the world got a hell of a cool movie in the cinemas about an ace pilot and the program he was in. Top Gun, with Tom Cruise, was a typical Go America flick that turned many boys into ace pilots, including Ray-Bans and volleyball. And now, in 2022, Tom Cruise returns as Maverick to soar once more. And oh boy does he soar. I was still young when Top Gun came out, and although I did see it on VHS, it wasn't as impactful as, let's say, RoboCop or Ghostbusters. But the name and especially the theme song stuck in my head, lingering for that day. And then I saw the teaser trailer of this film in early 2020. I was hyped. It looked cool. And then we had to wait 2 more years because of that little thing called the pandemic. And while we heard noises about Tom Cruise yelling on set, many people were confident it would be great despite the woke movement ruining franchises left and right. Top Gun Maverick did not disappoint. We follow Maverick once more as he is recruited to train a group of fighter pilots to do an almost impossible mission. These hotshots are arrogant enough to think an old geezer like Maverick can't teach them any new tricks, but oh boy were they wrong. And so we see our cast get into jets and fly. Actually fly. Let me repeat that. The cast actually flew jets. The G-forces on their faces during the film are real. I can't say for certain it all is, but watching plenty of behind-the-scenes videos I can say that the best stuff was even that one scene at the beginning with the awfully cool-looking experimental jet. You'll know it when you see it. You see, Tom Cruise not only is a madman who does his own insane stunts, he is also an actor who loves his craft. He loves Hollywood and knows that films are to the world. It was endearing to hear a personal message by Cruise himself where he thanked the viewers for coming to see the film after 2 years of lockdowns and other crap. To feel the magic of film once more in this call back to a much simpler time. A time where movies might have political and ethical messages but weren't propaganda. And my dear viewers, this movie doesn't do any of that stuff. It's entertaining. It's exciting. It's an ode to the sequel, not to destruction of an iconic character like the latest Terminator, Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, James Bond, the Marvel flicks and many, many more. Maverick reigns and it is #1 in the box office for a reason. People want to be entertained. Tom Cruise knows this, and I am glad that he is still doing his craft as maybe one of the last Hollywood icons out there. Smash that.